What is up, fight nerds and dirty gamblers? I am Eric, and this is Eric Bets Fights. Welcome back, folks, to Mixed Martial Smarts, the weekly show in which we test your trivial knowledge of the fighters that will be appearing on this weekend's UFC card. Today's episode will be for UFC Austin, coming up this Saturday, headlined by Calvin Kattar versus Josh Emmett. Before we get into these questions, though, folks, let's go over the answers from last week's episode, which would have been UFC 275, headlined by Glover Teixeira and Jiří Procházka, which ended up being one of the best fights we've ever seen, but we're not here to talk about that right now. We'll save that for another video. Let's go through the answers real quick. Last week we had 7 questions. This week we have 6. I try to only do 5 questions, but I always write more and I get excited about them and I want to include them. So we'll just go real quick through the answers from last week. Number 1, what Syndicate MMA product who will make her sophomore UFC appearance this weekend has the distinction of being the first woman born in Hong Kong to fight in the UFC's Octagon? A lot of people are guessing Na Liang for that one. It's actually Ramona Pascual. Yeah, she was born in Hong Kong. Question number 2, which UFC 275 fighter finished UFC vet James Vick by second round TKO in January 2021, just 1 year before making his UFC debut? That was Andre Fialho, who was knocked out by Jake Matthews last week. I called that one. I was pretty proud of that. Number 3, if Valentina Shevchenko defeats Taila Santos at UFC 275, which she did, arguably, she will become the first woman in UFC history to defend a title 7 times. She is currently tied with which former women's champion at 6 title defenses each? Well, she isn't tied with her anymore because she did get that 7th. She was tied with Ronda Rousey, who also had 6 title defenses of the same title. Some people did mention Amanda Nunes. I believe she has 7 title defenses, but 5 of them are in one division and 2 of them are in another. So she hasn't defended the same belt more than 5 times. Question number 4, Joanna Jędrzejczyk was only the 3rd European-born UFC champion. Which 2 European UFC champions preceded her? For the first one, we have to go all the way back to Bas Rutten, who did hold the UFC heavyweight belt for a little while. That would have been around like UFC 20 thereabouts, I think. I'm trying to remember. I know he had that fight where he won off of his back against Kevin Randleman was on top of him most of the time, but Rutten was landing more strikes off his back, and he actually won the fight from off his back. I can't remember if that was when he won the title or not, but anyway. And then the second European UFC champion was Andrei Arlovski. So yeah, it was only those 2 until Joanna won. We've had a bunch of European champions since then, of course, but that always kind of surprises me that Joanna was only the 3rd. Number 5, if Jiří Procházka manages to knock out Glover Teixeira at UFC 275, he will have finished how many consecutive opponents with strikes? It would have been 11, but he didn't. He shocked the world and choked out Glover instead. That was a crazy fight. Like I said, we're not going to get into that right now. A lot of fun, though. Number 6, Glover Teixeira scored a round 1 KO in October 2006 over what fighter who went on to score round 1 KOs in Pride over Little Nog and Ricardo Arona just a few months later? And then after that, he did make his UFC debut just a few months later. That was Sokaju. Yeah, I don't even know how you say his name. Ramu Terry Sokaju. They call him Judo Terry. I don't know. That was his nickname with his training partners anyway. But yeah, Sokaju. If you're not familiar with him, look him up. He was a monster. He didn't quite live up to expectations after those knockouts in Pride, but he was definitely a scary individual at first there. And finally, number 7, at 42 years old, Glover Teixeira is currently the oldest UFC champion. Not anymore, of course, but however, he is not the oldest UFC champion of all time. Who holds that distinction, and at what record-breaking age did he or she hold the belt? It was Randy Couture, and you'll often see 43 listed as the age at which he held the belt. He was 43 when he won the belt from Tim Sylvia. But he was 45 when he lost it to Brock Lesnar. So the answer is Randy Couture, but not 43, 45. He was 43 when he won it, but I'm looking for what was the oldest age at which someone held the belt? It was 45 years old. And I feel like that's a record that, may never be broken. Who knows? Could be, but probably not anytime soon. All right, let me know down in the comments how you did on those. If you played along last week, let's go ahead and jump into the questions for this week. We're going to do 6 questions. This is for UFC Austin, Calvin Kattar versus Josh Emmett. All of these questions will be about fighters appearing on that card. Question number 1, kind of a long one. That is what she said. Question number 1, which UFC Austin fighter said this about training with the Diaz brothers at age 19? I got like 3 bloody noses a day. I'm out there dogging it out. I'm by myself, but it was a great opportunity. Long term, I was able to see these guys and how they train on the West Coast. Watching the Diaz brothers train at 1 a.m. and realizing you can lie to yourself and say guys aren't training like that, but somewhere they are. I was exposed to that, which is great. You might have a little hint there. It says how they train on the West Coast. So we're probably looking for a fighter not from the West Coast. But there's question number 1. Moving on to number 2. Eddie Wineland has had 45 takedowns attempted against him in his 15-fight UFC career. How many times was he successfully taken down in those 45 attempts? 3, 7, or 12? I was going to leave this one open-ended, but that's pretty tough to just take a guess, so I gave you some choices. Again, Eddie Wineland has had 45 takedowns attempted against him in his 15-fight UFC career. I want to know how many times was he successfully taken down in those 45 attempts? Is it 3 times, 7 times, or 12 times? Moving on to number 3, which UFC Austin fighter had about 12 feet of intestines and half his stomach removed following a gruesome ATV accident in which he was essentially disemboweled and subsequently placed into a medically induced coma for 2 weeks? Yikes. That's a crazy one. 12 feet of intestines removed. I don't know how many feet of intestines you have. That's got to be a pretty good percentage of it. I guess if you stretch them out, they're pretty long, but I don't know. All right, moving on to number 4. Joe Lozon won his 2006 UFC debut by KO in 48 seconds, despite being a plus 700 underdog. What MMA legend and former UFC champion did he knock out? Again, Joe Lozon in his 2006 UFC debut, he was a plus 700 underdog, but he won by KO in only 48 seconds. I want to know what MMA legend and former UFC champion did he knock out? Moving on to question number 5. I'm going to talk about Court McGee a little bit, one of the toughest, grindiest sons of bitches that you'll ever see in the octagon. What I want to know is, what is UFC welterweight Court McGee's full first name? Is it a trick question? Is his full name actually just Court? Is it short for something? That's for you to figure out. What is UFC welterweight Court McGee's full first name? And finally, question number 6. Joaquin Buckley, who will fight on UFC Austin this weekend, is responsible for the most viral knockout in UFC's history. A spinning back kick that garnered 17.8 million views on Instagram, a theme song from Kanye West, and the most liked, most viewed, and most retweeted tweet in the promotion's history. Who was the unfortunate soul on the receiving end of this history-making KO? I'm sure we all remember it. This fighter caught Joaquin Buckley's kick, and Joaquin Buckley came around with the other leg and floored him with a spinning back kick. One thing I did not know about this until I was doing the research for this question, I did not know that Kanye West had apparently written a theme song for Kanye West. I can't remember what the quote was exactly, but Kanye West said he was so energized by this video that he just had to make some music about it, and he apparently posted a video on social media or something that was like the clip on repeat with his music over it or something. I don't know exactly, but anyway. All right, there's your 6 questions, folks. What I want you to do, if you've got answers, drop them down in the comments down there. I know you can just look them up. Some are easier to look up than others, but I would love to know your guesses without looking them up. Drop them in the comments down there. I will interact with you. I will let you know if you're right or wrong. If you're wrong, I'll give you a hint, maybe that kind of thing. But yeah, it's just kind of fun to see what answers you come up with. Also, make sure to like the video, share the video if you enjoyed it. Make sure that you subscribe right here at Never Hedge Media. If you enjoy the work that I put out, you can go ahead and head to my personal channel, Erik Betts Fights, right here on YouTube, and subscribe there as well. You can also find me on Twitter at Erik Betts Fights, Instagram at Erik_Betts_Fights. Yeah, that's pretty much about it. I've also got an online store that if you go to my Twitter and look at my bio, I've got a link tree in there. You can go to my online store. You can go to my tracked betting record. Pretty much everything if you want to get to know Erik Betts Fights a little better. I kind of just talked about myself in the third person. I did not mean to do that. But thank you so much for watching the video, folks. I am Erik with Erik Betts Fights. I hope you enjoy the fights at UFC Austin this weekend, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one, everybody.